The Boeing 737 was 3 minutes from touching down at Reagan National when the first missile streaked past the starboard wing. Passengers pressed their faces against windows, watching the contrail dissipate into the October sky like a question mark written in smoke. In seat 12F, Valentina Phoenix Restrepo didn't flinch. She simply reached for her phone, thumb hovering over a contact labeled Pentagon, Emergency. The flight attendant's voice crackled over the intercom, professional but strained. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some weather complications. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened." Weather complications. That's what they called surface-to-air missiles now. Phoenix watched the Potomac River slide beneath them, its surface reflecting the afternoon sun like hammered steel. She counted 3 more vapor trails stitching across the sky, each one a deadly thread in a pattern she recognized from briefings she wasn't supposed to remember. Her fingers tightened around the phone. The woman next to her, clutching rosary beads, whispered prayers in Spanish. Phoenix understood every word. "Tower, this is Delta 1247. We have multiple SAM launches, requesting immediate vector change." Captain Rodriguez's voice filtered through the thin cabin walls. His tone carried the controlled panic of a man watching his retirement plans evaporate in real time. Phoenix closed her eyes, letting muscle memory take over. She could feel the aircraft's subtle banking left, the way the engines strained against physics and terror. Somewhere below, in the concrete maze of Washington, D.C., someone had just declared war on American airspace, and everyone aboard this civilian aircraft had become unwilling participants in whatever came next. She pressed the call button. "Anvil Base, this is Phoenix." Her voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried the weight of 7 years flying combat missions over Syria, Afghanistan, and places that didn't exist on public maps. "I'm aboard Delta 1247 and we've got incoming. Request immediate tactical assistance and verify. Is Operation Prometheus still active?" The silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. Then, "Phoenix, this is General Morrison. Jesus Christ, where have you been?" She almost smiled. "Almost. Sir, I've been in seat 12F, drinking terrible coffee and trying to forget I ever learned how to kill things from 30,000 feet." Another missile screamed past, close enough that she could see its fins adjusting for optimal targeting. The Boeing shuddered like a wounded bird. "Well," Morrison's voice crackled through her encrypted earpiece, "I hope you're ready to remember." The Pentagon's Crisis Response Center looked like organized chaos given architectural form. 60-inch monitors displayed real-time satellite feeds, radar sweeps, and classified intelligence reports that would make foreign governments weep with envy. In the center of it all, General Patricia Morrison stood like a lighthouse in a storm of uniformed personnel rushing between workstations. "Give me a sitrep on the SAM batteries," she barked at Colonel Matthews, her aide-de-camp. 12 confirmed launch sites, ma'am. Mobile platforms, likely Russian-made Pantsir systems. They're operating in a coordinated pattern around Dulles, Reagan, and BWI. Commercial air traffic is completely grounded." Morrison's jaw tightened. She'd spent 32 years in the Air Force, climbing from enlisted radar operator to 3-star general, and she'd never seen anything like this. Coordinated attacks on American airspace using sophisticated anti-aircraft systems suggested either a very well-funded terrorist organization or something much worse. "What about our response capabilities?" 6 F-35s scrambled from Andrews, 12 F-16s from Dover. ETA to threat zone is 8 minutes. Matthews paused, consulting his tablet. "Ma'am, there's something else. We've got a civilian aircraft still in the air, Delta 1247. They're requesting emergency landing clearance but with those SAM sites active." Morrison's blood turned to ice water. "How many souls on board?" 137 passengers, crew of 6. Matthews swallowed hard. "Ma'am, one of those passengers identified herself as Phoenix." The general's hand stilled on the tactical display. Phoenix, Valentina Restrepo, the pilot who'd single-handedly turned the tide at Kandahar, who'd flown impossible missions with the kind of precision that made grown men weep. The same pilot who'd walked away from the Air Force 3 years ago, citing philosophical differences with her superiors. Get her on secure comms, now. Ma'am, she's already on line 7. Morrison grabbed the headset, her mind racing through possibilities and probabilities. Phoenix, this is Anvil Base. What's your tactical assessment? Restrepo's voice came through clear and steady. General, I count 14 launch positions based on contrail analysis. They're using a standard air denial pattern, but there's a gap in their coverage grid. Southwest vector, bearing 270, approximately 12 miles out, if we can punch through there. Phoenix, you're a passenger on a commercial aircraft. Your tactical assessment days are behind you. A pause. When Restrepo spoke again, her voice carried a different quality. Harder. General, with respect, those SAM sites aren't just targeting random aircraft. They're specifically hunting something. The pattern's too precise, too coordinated. Someone down there knows exactly what they're doing, and they've got military-grade intelligence. Morrison felt the first cold finger of real fear touch her spine. What are you saying? I'm saying this isn't terrorism, ma'am. This is betrayal. Captain Jake Viper Harrison had been flying F-35 Lightning IIs for 4 years, and he'd never seen Washington, D.C. from this angle. The city spread below him like a circuit board, all geometric patterns and glowing nodes, while his aircraft cut through the sky at Mach 1.2. His wingman, Lieutenant Colonel Sandra Hawk Chen, maintained perfect formation 300 meters to his starboard. Viper, this is control. Multiple bogies detected on radar. Vector 285, Angels 25. Weapons free, repeat, weapons free. Harrison's thumb moved to the weapon selector switch. Somewhere down there, people were shooting missiles at American civilians. The math was simple. Find them, fix them, finish them. Copy control, Viper flight engaging. He banked left, following the green diamond symbols on his heads-up display. Hawk, you seeing this targeting data? Affirmative, Viper. 12 confirmed SAM sites, mobile launchers. Wait. Chen's voice carried a note of confusion. Control, I'm reading some inconsistencies in the threat assessment. Clarify, Hawk. These aren't random placements. Someone with serious tactical training positioned these sites. They're covering all the major approach vectors to DC, but they've left deliberate gaps. It's like they want us to attack from specific directions. Harrison frowned, studying his tactical display. Chen was right. The SAM positions formed an almost perfect defensive ring, but with strategic vulnerabilities that any competent military planner would have covered. Unless. Control, this is Viper. Request confirmation. Are we certain these are hostile forces? Viper, you have multiple missile launches at civilian aircraft. That makes them hostile in my book. Fair enough. Harrison armed his AGM-88 HARM anti-radiation missiles and prepared to light up every radar signature within 50 miles. But something nagged at him. The gaps in coverage, the almost textbook positioning, it felt like a trap. Hawk, take the northern sites. I'll handle the southern perimeter. Copy, Viper, going hot. Harrison watched his wingman's F-35 dive toward the first target, her missile streaking down like an arrow of justice. The explosion bloomed orange and black against the Virginia countryside, followed immediately by secondary detonations that suggested significant ammunition stores. But instead of celebration, Harrison felt only unease. This was too easy. Professional-grade SAM operators didn't leave their positions exposed to HARM missiles. They moved constantly, used decoys, employed electronic countermeasures. Unless they wanted to be found. His radio crackled. All units, this is Phoenix. Do not repeat, do not engage the northern sites. They're decoys. Harrison's blood chilled. Phoenix, Every pilot in the Air Force knew that call sign, knew the legend, but Phoenix had been grounded, discharged, forgotten. Phoenix, identify yourself and your authority. Viper, this is General Morrison. Phoenix is operating under my direct authorization. Listen to her. The world suddenly felt smaller and infinitely more dangerous. Aboard Delta 1247, Phoenix pressed herself against the small window, watching F-35s dance through the sky like deadly angels. Her trained eye cataloged their positions, their attack vectors, their tactical formation. Professional, competent, completely wrong. "General Morrison, patch me through to the flight leader," she said into her phone. "Phoenix, you're not in the chain of command anymore." "Ma'am, with respect, I'm the only person on this aircraft who knows what a real SAM trap looks like, and what we're seeing down there. It's not what your pilots think it is." Through her earpiece, she heard the controlled chaos of military radio traffic. Call signs, vectors, weapon system status reports. The familiar symphony of aerial warfare, except this time she was listening from the wrong side of the glass. "This is Viper. Phoenix, explain your assessment." She closed her eyes, visualizing the tactical situation from memory. "Viper, those northern SAM sites are equipped with IR decoys and radar reflectors. They're designed to draw your harm missiles while the real launchers remain hidden. Classic Soviet-era deception doctrine, but executed with American precision." "How can you possibly know that from a commercial aircraft?" "Because I helped design those tactics." The admission tasted like metal in her mouth. 3 years ago, I was part of a classified program developing anti-access strategies. We were trying to figure out how a technologically inferior force could deny airspace to superior air power. Silence on the radio. Then Morrison's voice, "Phoenix, that program was terminated." "No, ma'am. That program was compartmentalized." She watched another F-35 banking toward what she knew was a decoy position. "Someone took our playbook and turned it against us." The Boeing shuddered as another missile passed nearby, close enough that she could see the rocket motor's exhaust trail. Captain Rodriguez was doing his best, but civilian aircraft weren't designed for combat maneuvering. They were running out of fuel, altitude, and options. "Viper, the real SAM sites are positioned in a secondary ring, approximately 5 miles inside the decoy perimeter. They're using the decoys to channel your attack routes into predetermined kill zones." "Phoenix, that's a hell of an accusation. You're saying someone inside our own system is running this operation." She thought about the 3 years since her discharge, the sleepless nights, the classified documents that had haunted her dreams. The program that was supposed to protect America by understanding its vulnerabilities. The program that had apparently become America's vulnerability. "Viper, I'm saying someone who knows our doctrine better than we do is orchestrating this, and they've been planning it for a very long time." Another shudder. This time she heard metal screaming. The harm missile struck the decoy SAM site with surgical precision, turning a carefully constructed illusion into twisted metal and smoke. From his cockpit, Harrison watched the explosion with professional satisfaction, but Phoenix's words echoed in his mind. "The northern sites are decoys." "Hawk, abort your attack run," he transmitted. "Viper, I'm already committed, missile away." Harrison watched his wingman's harm streak toward its target, a white contrail drawing a line between sky and earth. The explosion was immediate and spectacular, too spectacular. Real SAM sites didn't detonate with that much secondary fire unless they were loaded with far more explosive material than necessary. Or unless they were designed to explode dramatically. "Control, this is Viper. Phoenix may be correct about the decoy sites. Request immediate satellite reconnaissance of the inner perimeter." "Viper, maintain your attack profile. We have confirmed hostile launches from those positions." But Harrison was already banking away, his F-35 climbing toward a higher observation altitude. Something about this entire operation felt wrong. The SAM sites were too perfectly positioned, too vulnerable to standard SCAD tactics. It was like fighting an enemy who wanted to lose. His radar warning receiver chirped, then screamed. "Control, I have missile lock. Multiple launches from. Jesus, they're coming from inside the city." The missiles rose from DC itself, sleek and deadly, their trajectories calculated with frightening precision. Not wild shots from panicked terrorists, but carefully aimed interceptors from someone who knew exactly where his F-35 would be. Viper evasive maneuvers, deploy countermeasures. Harrison threw his aircraft into a violent spiral, chaff and flares streaming behind him like metallic fireworks. The first missile passed close enough to rattle his teeth. The second one found his left engine. The F-35 shuddered, master caution lights illuminating his cockpit like a Christmas tree from hell. Hydraulic pressure dropping, engine fire warning, flight control degradation. He was 40 miles from friendly territory with $250,000 worth of American air superiority turning into an expensive glider. "Mayday, Mayday, this is Viper. I have engine fire and flight control problems, declaring emergency." Through his helmet's integrated display, he could see Hawk's F-35 jinxing desperately as more missiles climbed toward her. They'd flown into a trap that someone had spent years preparing. "Viper, this is Phoenix." The voice was calm, professional, carrying the authority of someone who'd survived situations like this before. "What's your fuel state and distance to Andrews?" "Phoenix, I've got maybe 10 minutes of controlled flight left." "Then we need to end this fast. Viper, I need you to paint the real SAM sights for me." Harrison almost laughed. "Phoenix, you're on a goddamn airliner. What exactly are you planning to do?" "Something stupid. Lock your radar onto coordinates I'm about to transmit. And Viper, when this is over, remind me to never fly commercial again." General Morrison watched the tactical display with the detached fascination of someone witnessing a disaster in slow motion. Red symbols multiplied across her screens. SAM launches, aircraft in distress, communication intercepts that painted a picture of coordinated attack against American airspace. In 32 years of service, she'd never seen anything like it. "Ma'am, we're getting reports of secondary launches from within the DC metropolitan area," Colonel Matthews reported. "Appears to be mobile launchers operating from civilian areas." "How many?" "At least 6 confirmed, possibly more. They're using commercial vehicles as platforms, probably modified trucks or SUVs. Very sophisticated operation." Morrison felt the weight of command settling on her shoulders like a lead blanket. Someone had spent months, maybe years, preparing this attack. They'd studied American air defense procedures, identified weaknesses, and exploited them with surgical precision. This wasn't terrorism, it was warfare. "What's the status on Phoenix?" "Still aboard Delta 1247, providing tactical guidance to our airborne assets. General, I have to ask, is it wise to trust intelligence from someone who's been out of the loop for 3 years?" Morrison considered this. Valentina Restrepo had been the most naturally gifted tactical pilot she'd ever encountered, capable of seeing patterns and solutions that escaped other analysts. But she'd also been the most frustrating officer under Morrison's command, constantly questioning orders and pushing against established doctrine. The reason for her discharge had been officially listed as philosophical differences with command structure. Unofficially, Restrepo had discovered something about the classified anti-access program that had made her superiors extremely uncomfortable. "Colonel, patch me through to Phoenix directly." "Yes, ma'am." The connection crackled with static and engine noise. "Phoenix, this is Morrison. I need to ask you something and I need a straight answer." "Yes, ma'am." "The anti-access program you worked on 3 years ago. What did you discover that made you walk away?" A long pause. Morrison could hear the Boeing's engine straining, could imagine Restrepo calculating odds and probabilities while sitting in a seat designed for business travelers, not combat analysts. "General, I discovered that someone was feeding our tactical developments to a parallel program. All the vulnerabilities we identified, all the countermeasures we developed, they were being duplicated and refined by a group that wasn't officially part of the Pentagon command structure." "Are you saying we have a leak?" "No, ma'am. I'm saying we have a mirror. Someone built an exact replica of our own analytical capabilities and has been using it to plan this attack for years." Morrison's blood turned to ice. A mirror program would have access to everything: American tactical doctrine, radar signatures, communication protocols, even individual pilot training records. "Phoenix, if you're right, then they know everything we're going to do before we do it." "Yes, ma'am, which is why we need to do something they haven't planned for." "Such as?" Another pause. "Something stupid, ma'am. Something so far outside standard doctrine that their mirror program never considered it." Morrison looked at the tactical display, watching American aircraft dancing with death above the nation's capital. Sometimes, stupid was exactly what the situation required. Valentina Restrepo had always hated flying as a passenger. Give her the controls of an F-16 at Mach 2, and she felt completely at home. Strap her into seat 12F with nothing but a tiny window and terrible coffee, and she became acutely aware of every sound, every vibration, every subtle shift in the aircraft's attitude. Right now, Delta 1247 was flying like a wounded bird with broken wings. "Captain Rodriguez," she called forward, unbuckling her seatbelt despite the illuminated sign commanding her to remain seated. "What's our fuel situation?" The flight attendant moved to block her path. "Ma'am, please return to your seat." "I'm a former Air Force pilot, and right now I'm probably the only person on this aircraft who understands what we're flying into." Restrepo's voice carried the quiet authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed in crisis situations. "I need to speak with your captain." The flight attendant hesitated, glanced toward the cockpit, then stepped aside. Rodriguez looked up as she entered the cramped space, his face pale with controlled panic. "You're Phoenix." "Yes, sir. What's our situation?" "Fuel for maybe 20 more minutes, hydraulic pressure dropping, and those missile sites have us boxed in. I can't get clearance for emergency landing anywhere within 200 miles." He gestured at his instruments. "Ma'am, I've got 143 people back there, and I don't know how to save them." Restrepo studied the navigation display, calculating vectors and possibilities. Standard procedure would be to vector away from the threat area, request emergency clearance at a distant airport, hope the missiles couldn't reach them. But standard procedures were exactly what the enemy had planned for. "Captain, I need you to do something that's going to sound insane." "Ma'am, at this point I'll try anything." "I need you to fly directly toward Reagan National. Full approach profile, landing configuration, as if everything were normal." Rodriguez stared at her. "That's suicide. Those SAM sites will light us up the moment we begin final approach." "Not if we're doing exactly what they want us to do." She pulled out her phone, checking the encrypted tactical data she'd been receiving. "Captain, those missiles aren't trying to shoot us down. They're hurting us." "Explain." "The attack pattern is designed to force all civilian aircraft away from DC airspace. But what if one aircraft refused to be hurted? What if one aircraft flew directly into the trap instead of away from it?" Rodriguez's hands trembled on the controls. "Ma'am, you're asking me to bet 143 lives on your tactical theory." Restrepo thought about the 3 years since her discharge. The nights spent wondering if she could have done more, should have fought harder against the forces she'd sensed moving in the shadows. She thought about the mirror program, the parallel analysis, the careful preparation that had led to this moment. Captain, I'm asking you to trust me one more time. The SAM site hidden beneath the Arlington Memorial Bridge had been waiting for 3 hours. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos crouched behind the launcher's control panel, watching radar returns paint geometric patterns on her scope. Civilian aircraft scattered like frightened birds, exactly as planned. Except for one. Control, this is Site 7. I have a contact maintaining direct approach to Reagan National. Designate Delta 1247. The radio crackled with encrypted static before responding. Site 7. That contact is not following expected behavior patterns. Maintain lock but do not engage without authorization. Santos frowned. The entire operation had been planned with mathematical precision, every variable accounted for, every possible response calculated and countered. Civilian aircraft were supposed to flee the threat area, military aircraft were supposed to attack the decoy sites, and the resulting chaos would provide cover for the real objective. But Delta 1247 was flying directly toward the most heavily defended airspace in America. Control, contact is descending through 15,000 feet, maintaining approach vector. Recommend immediate engagement. Site 7 negative, observe and report. Santos watched the blip on her screen, representing 143 innocent people aboard a commercial aircraft that should have been running for safety. Instead, they were flying into the mouth of the Dragon. Either the pilot had completely lost his mind, or someone aboard that aircraft knew exactly what they were doing. Control, I think we have a problem. Her earpiece remained silent for 10 seconds. Then, Site 7, you are authorized to engage if the contact deviates from standard commercial approach profile. Any deviation, any at all. Santos's finger moved to the firing switch. The Pantsir system could place a 57E6 missile within 3 meters of any target within 20 miles. At this range, she couldn't miss even if she wanted to. But something nagged at her. 3 years of preparation, months of training, detailed intelligence on American air defense procedures. The plan had accounted for every possibility except this one, a civilian aircraft that refused to behave like a civilian aircraft. She watched Delta 1247 descend through 10,000 feet, gear extending, flaps deploying. Every action precisely what a commercial pilot would do for a normal landing approach. Except there was nothing normal about landing at Reagan National while SAM sites bracketed the entire metropolitan area. Control, contact is configuring for landing. This doesn't make tactical sense. Site 7, maintain lock. If that aircraft is landing, they're not following the plan. Santos realized with cold certainty that the aircraft's refusal to flee had just turned it from civilian to target. Harrison's damaged F-35 was flying like a brick with wings, but he maintained formation with Phoenix's commercial aircraft as they descended toward Reagan National. His heads-up display painted the tactical situation in stark detail. Multiple SAM sites maintaining radar lock, surface-to-air missiles armed and ready, and one crazy former Air Force pilot betting everything on a theory that sounded insane. Phoenix, I show at least 6 sites with active illumination. They've got us bracketed. Copy, Viper. That's exactly what I want them to do. Harrison glanced through his canopy at the Boeing 737 descending beside him. Inside that aircraft, 143 civilians were strapped into their seats, trusting their captain and his guidance from a woman they'd never heard of. The responsibility felt heavier than his ejection seat. Phoenix, explain your plan, because from where I'm sitting, we're flying into a shooting gallery. Viper, those SAM sites have been programmed with specific target profiles. They know how to engage military aircraft conducting combat operations, and they know how to engage civilian aircraft fleeing the threat area. But they don't know how to engage a civilian aircraft that's actively cooperating with military assets. Harrison processed this. You're creating a scenario their planning didn't account for. Exactly. They've got targeting solutions for every contingency except this one. A commercial aircraft providing targeting data for military strikes while conducting a normal landing approach. It was brilliant and completely insane. Harrison watched his threat warning display light up like a Christmas tree as multiple radar systems achieved firing solutions. Any second now, someone was going to decide that Delta 1247 represented an unacceptable risk. Phoenix, I'm reading missile launch, now. The SAM rose from Arlington like a pillar of fire, its guidance system locked onto the descending Boeing. Harrison reacted instinctively, placing his damaged F-35 between the missile and the civilian aircraft. Viper negative, do not intercept. Phoenix, that missile will kill everyone aboard your aircraft. Viper, trust me. Maintain position but do not interfere. Harrison watched the missile climb toward them, his finger hovering over the chaff dispenser button. Every instinct screamed at him to defend the civilians, to throw his aircraft into the missile's path, to do something other than watch 143 people die. The missile passed within 50 meters of Delta 1247's starboard wing and self-destructed. What the hell? Harrison stared at his sensors, trying to understand what had just happened. Viper, that missile was programmed with very specific target criteria. It can engage military aircraft, and it can engage fleeing civilian aircraft. But it cannot engage a civilian aircraft conducting normal landing operations while escorted by friendly military assets. The targeting computer doesn't know how to classify us. Harrison felt a smile tugging at his lips. Phoenix, you're creating a classification error in their targeting systems. Affirmative. And while they're trying to figure out what we are, we're going to kill every SAM site in the metropolitan area. General Morrison watched the tactical display with fascination and growing respect. Phoenix's gambit was working. Delta 1247 continued its approach to Reagan National while SAM sites throughout the area maintained radar locks but held fire. The targeting computers, programmed with elaborate decision trees and engagement criteria, couldn't reconcile a civilian aircraft that was simultaneously conducting normal operations and providing military intelligence. Colonel Matthews, are you seeing this? Yes, ma'am. The enemy SAM sites are achieving targeting solutions but not engaging. It's like they're frozen. Morrison nodded. Restrepo had always been able to see angles that escaped conventional analysis. 3 years ago, her insights into anti-access warfare had been so uncomfortable that senior leadership had preferred to discharge her rather than confront the implications of her discoveries. Now those same insights might save the nation's capital. Ma'am, we're getting reports of additional F-35s inbound from Dover. ETA 4 minutes. Good, patch me through to Phoenix. The connection carried the sound of jet engines and barely controlled panic. Phoenix, this is Morrison. Your tactic is working, but you're still flying a damaged civilian aircraft into the most dangerous airspace in America. What's your exit strategy? General, I need those F-35s from Dover to follow my aircraft's approach path exactly. Same altitude, same speed, same configuration. Phoenix, F-35s don't have landing gear designed for commercial approach speeds. Ma'am, they don't need to land. They just need to confuse the targeting computers long enough for me to paint every real SAM site in the area. Morrison understood. Restrepo was turning the enemy's sophistication against them. The more complex their targeting systems, the more vulnerable they became to classification errors and decision paralysis. Phoenix, assuming your plan works, how do we identify the people responsible for this attack? General, I already know who's responsible. The mirror program I discovered 3 years ago wasn't just analyzing our vulnerabilities. It was being run by people inside our own system. People who had access to everything: tactical doctrine, pilot training records, weapon specifications. Are you saying this is an inside job? Ma'am, I'm saying this is a coup attempt disguised as a terrorist attack. Someone wanted to demonstrate that American airspace could be compromised by sophisticated adversaries. Then they planned to offer their services as the solution to the problem they created. Morrison felt the pieces falling into place. A coordinated attack using American tactical doctrine, weapons systems that exploited specific vulnerabilities in U.S. air defenses, and a level of intelligence that could only come from inside access. Phoenix, when this is over, I want you back in uniform. General, with respect, I never really left. Santos watched her targeting scope with growing frustration. Delta 1247 remained locked in her crosshairs, but the engagement computer refused to authorize missile launch. Every parameter indicated a valid military target. The aircraft was clearly coordinating with Air Force assets, providing tactical intelligence, and operating in direct violation of airspace restrictions. But the targeting profile classified it as civilian transport conducting normal approach operations. Control, this is Site 7. Request manual override for engagement authorization. Site 7, negative. Maintain automatic engagement protocols. Santos understood the tactical logic. Manual overrides created accountability, left digital fingerprints that could be traced back to individual operators. Automatic engagement protocols provided plausible deniability. The system had made the decision, not the human operator. But plausible deniability wouldn't matter if the mission failed. She watched Delta 1247 descend through 5,000 feet, its landing lights illuminated, gear extended, following every standard procedure for commercial aircraft operations. Except commercial aircraft didn't normally coordinate targeting data with military assets. Site 7, this is Control. Prepare for mission abort. Santos felt her blood freeze. Control, repeat. Site 7, we have additional F-35s inbound, and the civilian aircraft has created a targeting classification error that spread to other sites. The operation is compromised. Control, what about the primary objective? Static filled her earpiece for several seconds. Then, Site 7, initiate destruction protocols and extract immediately. The mirror program has been compromised. Santos looked at the self-destruct panel mounted beside her targeting console. 3 years of planning, months of preparation, and the entire operation was collapsing because of one woman who'd refused to follow the script. She thought about Staff Sergeant Maria Santos, the identity she'd assumed for this mission. The real Santos had died in Syria 2 years ago, killed by an IED while convoy security. Her death had provided perfect cover for someone who needed to disappear from official records. Someone who'd helped design the anti-access program that Phoenix had discovered. Someone who'd been feeding American tactical intelligence to foreign adversaries for years. Santos reached for the self-destruct switch, knowing that her extraction route would take her to a safe house in Virginia, then to a new identity in a country without extradition treaties. But first, she was going to put a 57E6 missile directly through Delta 1247's cockpit. Manual override engaged. Phoenix watched the Potomac River slide beneath Delta 1247's wing, calculating distances and angles with the precision of someone who'd spent 7 years turning mathematics into death. The Boeing was configured for landing, gear extended, flaps deployed, following every procedure in the Commercial Aviation Handbook. Except the handbook didn't cover coordinating missile strikes while conducting final approach. Viper, I need you to paint the Arlington Memorial Bridge site. Bearing 095, range 8 miles. Harrison's damaged F-35 banked slightly, his targeting radar illuminating the SAM position hidden beneath the bridge structure. Phoenix, I have tone. Site is locked. Copy, stand by for target designation. Through the small passenger window, Phoenix could see the Washington Monument rising like a white spear against the October sky. Somewhere below, in bunkers and command centers, people were watching this drama unfold on tactical displays. Some of them were trying to save American lives. Others were trying to destroy American democracy. She'd spent 3 years figuring out which was which. Viper target designation transmitted. Engage when ready. Phoenix, that's danger close to civilian areas. Viper, that site just went to manual override. They're preparing to fire on us regardless of targeting classification. Take the shot. She felt the Boeing shudder as Harrison's HARM missile streaked past, its radar seeker locked onto the SAM site's illumination. The explosion lit up the Potomac like a brief sunrise, secondary detonations confirming ammunition storage destruction. 1 down, 5 to go. Phoenix, this is Morrison. Dover flight is 2 minutes out. What's your plan for the remaining sites? Restrepo studied the tactical data flowing through her encrypted phone. The SAM positions formed a nearly perfect defensive ring around Washington, D.C., but their placement revealed something else. They were positioned to defend against external threats, not internal ones. General, I need you to ground all civilian air traffic within 50 miles of D.C. immediately. Phoenix, that's already been done. No, ma'am. I need you to ground everything. Military cargo flights, medical helicopters, government transports, everything except combat aircraft. Morrison paused. Phoenix, explain. General, in about 30 seconds, every SAM site in this area is going to receive updated targeting parameters. They're going to be told that any aircraft operating in D.C. airspace without proper authorization is hostile. That would include your aircraft. Yes, ma'am. Which is why I need those F-35s from Dover to follow us in at minimum interval. If we can create enough classification confusion, their targeting computers will freeze long enough for us to eliminate the remaining sites. Through her window, Phoenix could see the Capitol dome gleaming in the afternoon sunlight. Somewhere in those halls, legislators were probably debating budgets and policies, completely unaware that their democracy was under direct attack. She was going to make sure they survived to debate another day. The F-35s from Dover arrived like angels of death, their sleek profiles cutting through the October sky with lethal precision. Captain Lisa Reaper Williams led the formation, her aircraft configured for air-to-ground operations with full HARM loadouts. Phoenix, this is Reaper. We have you visual. That's one hell of a way to conduct a combat mission. Williams could see Delta 1247 through her helmet-mounted display. The Boeing 737 descending toward Reagan National with landing lights blazing. It looked completely normal except for the damaged F-35 flying escort and the multiple SAM sites painting it with targeting radars. Reaper, this is Phoenix. I need your flight to follow my approach vector at minimum spacing.